I never imagined I'd be canceling the $17,000 Christmas trip, not out of anger, but out of heartbreak. I spent months planning the perfect family getaway flights, hotels, dinners, every magical moment crafted just to see my daughter smile again. But a week before Christmas, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I'm not coming, Dad. I'm spending it with his family this year." And in that moment, something shattered. Not just the plans, but something deeper. A father's place, a father's hope, a father's worth. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just canceled everything. And what followed changed our family forever. Asterisk, I still remember the way her eyes lit up when she was 10 years old, pointing at the Eiffel Tower in a children's book. "One day, I'll go there with you, Daddy." She said it so innocently, so full of wonder, that I made a silent promise right then one day I'd take her, no matter what. She's 24 now. Time flew. Somewhere along the way, she became distant college, new friends, a new boyfriend. I kept telling myself that it was just part of growing up. But deep inside, I missed her, missed our breakfast, talks, missed being her safe place, missed feeling like I mattered to her. So last summer, in July, I made a decision. This Christmas, we go to Paris. No excuses, no delays. I was going to recreate the magic of her childhood, a full family. Trip me, her mother, her younger brother, and her. 1 week in the most beautiful city on earth. The dream we once shared, finally real. I spent hours, days researching everything. I didn't just book flights. I curated experiences. A hotel room overlooking the Seine. Dinner reservations at a quiet bistro tucked away in Montmartre. A surprise river cruise under twinkling Christmas lights. I even arranged a private tour of the Louvre because I remembered how much she loved art. When she was a teenager, every tiny detail, every single plan was made with her in mind. I even had a hidden surprise. I bought her tickets to a Christmas ballet at Palais Garnier. Front row. I imagined the moment her eyes would light up like they used to, and she'd whisper, "Thank you, Dad." That image kept me going through long work hours and stressful deadlines. I wanted her to feel seen again, loved, cherished. I wanted her to remember that no matter how far life took her, she would always have a home with us. The total cost, $17,000, a number that would make most people flinch. But to me, it wasn't about money. It was about moments, about healing the distance that had grown between us over the years. I saw this trip as a reset, a quiet chance to reconnect before time pulled us further apart. Her mother thought I was going overboard. She's an adult now, you know. She has her own life. But I just smiled and said, "She's still my little girl." As Christmas got closer, I could barely contain my excitement. I printed out the itinerary, bought new luggage for everyone, even got matching winter scarves for the family. I imagined walking through the snowy streets of Paris together, sipping hot chocolate by the Champs-Élysées, taking goofy selfies under Christmas lights. It wasn't just a vacation, it was a way back to each other. But what I didn't plan for was the silence. She wasn't responding to messages about the trip. She didn't ask questions, didn't show interest, just vague replies like "sounds good" or "cool." I chalked it up to stress, maybe finals, maybe work, maybe she was just tired. But I kept waiting for her to show the excitement I felt. It never came. Still, I brushed it off. She'd light up when we got there, I told myself. Once the plane took off, once she saw the Eiffel Tower in real life, everything would click again. We'd laugh, we'd hug, we'd remember. Then, just 1 week before Christmas, she came over for dinner. I cooked her favorite rosemary chicken with garlic mashed potatoes. The house was decorated in gold and red. The Paris envelope sat wrapped beneath the tree, each labeled with our names. It was supposed to be a surprise reveal night, the big moment. But before we even sat down to eat, she spoke. "Dad, I need to tell you something." I smiled. "You're gonna love this dinner. And after that, I'm not coming to Paris," she said. Just like that. Silence for a moment. I thought I hadn't heard her right. "I'm sorry," I asked. "I'm spending Christmas with Josh's family," she repeated, like it was a casual thing. They invited me months ago, and I don't think it makes sense for me to go on a family trip now. I stared at her, stunned. She hadn't just canceled a trip. She'd walked away from a promise, from all the effort, the care, the hope I poured into those plans. She walked away without even asking how I'd feel. She hadn't even told me earlier I didn't matter enough. My wife tried to keep the peace. Maybe we can move the dates, she whispered. But I knew something had already broken. That night, after she left, I sat alone with the envelopes in my hand, wondering how I got it all so wrong. $17,000, hundreds of hours of planning, one dream, crushed in a single sentence. And as I looked out the frosted window, the Eiffel Tower glowing in the framed picture she once loved, I realized something. I wasn't just trying to give her a trip. I was trying to give her us again. But maybe she didn't want to die, so the next morning, I made a quiet decision. I picked up the phone and canceled it all. A week before the flight. My daughter told me she's spending Christmas with her boyfriend's family. The day she said it is burned into my memory, not just the words, but the way she said them. No emotion, no apology, like it was just a casual change of plans. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind that smells like home roast chicken in the oven, holiday music playing low in the background, and the faint scent of cinnamon drifting from a candle on the kitchen counter. I had been humming a Christmas tune to myself, thinking about how close we were to take off. Just 7 more days until Paris, until the trip I had built in my mind for nearly half a year. She came over that evening, wearing a puffer jacket and scarf, phone in one hand, barely making eye contact. I thought maybe she was just tired or distracted. I didn't see it coming. Not at all. She didn't sit, didn't take her coat off, just stood in the doorway like a visitor in her own home. I smiled, trying to draw her in. Come in, I said, waving her toward the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready. You're gonna love what I cooked, your favorite. She half smiled and said, I won't stay long. The words barely landed before she dropped the bomb. I'm not coming to Paris. I blinked, confused. What? I'm spending Christmas with Josh's family. Josh, her boyfriend, the one she started dating about a year ago. I'd only met him twice. He was polite, sure, but distant. He always looked at me like I was part of the old world, like I belonged to some outdated version of her life. I tried to laugh it off. Wait, you're joking, right? No, Dad, she said, her voice flat. I should have told you sooner. They invited me weeks ago. Josh's mom planned this big Christmas thing. It's kind of important to him. And what about us? What about the thousands of dollars I had spent, the hours I stayed, up planning, imagining every detail of a trip meant to bring us closer again? What about that little girl who used to jump on my back and say, one day, Daddy, let's go to Paris together? I felt my chest tighten. But you knew about the trip, I said quietly. You knew how much this meant. I've been talking about it for months. She shrugged. I know, but plans change. I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I have my own life now, and it's just, Christmas should be about doing what feels right, right? What feels right? I swallowed the hurt, tried to stay calm, but inside me, something cracked, not just because she canceled, not even because she chose someone else. It was how she said it, like I was some afterthought, a footnote. I looked at her and saw someone I didn't recognize. The girl who once begged me to watch Christmas movies with her every night of December was now standing in front of me like a stranger. So, what? I asked. You were just going to drop this on us a week before we fly out. Did you even plan on telling us? Or were you hoping we'd find out when your seat was empty? She winced. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but she had, more deeply than she understood. I thought we mattered, I said, my voice breaking. I thought maybe this trip could bring us back together, but maybe I was wrong. She looked away. She couldn't meet my eyes, and maybe that was the most honest moment of all. For a long second, we stood in silence, me holding a wooden spoon, the smell of rosemary and garlic still hanging in the air, and her wrapped in a coat she Clearly wasn't planning to take off. It wasn't just a cancellation. It was a goodbye to something sacred, something I didn't even know we were losing until it was gone. I've got to go, she said quietly. And just like that, she turned and walked out. No hug, no thank you, no second glance. I heard the door click shut, and then came the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the hollow kind, the kind that echoes. I stood there, unmoving, the food still simmering, the table set for 4, and I stared at the 4th chair, the one I'd imagined her sitting and laughing, joking, asking about Pears. All those imagined moments evaporated. She chose his family, maybe for love, maybe for independence, maybe just because she could, but what she didn't know was that she wasn't just skipping a trip. She was stepping over a bridge I'd built for months, a bridge back to us. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't even put the food away. I just sat in the living room, lights off, staring at the flickering Christmas tree, its reflection dancing on the glass window. I thought about the plane tickets, the hotel bookings, the reservations, the ballet surprise, all of it, now pointless. But most of all, I thought about how a daughter could say so little and still break her father's heart completely. The next morning, I did what I never thought I'd do. I called the airline, and I said 5 words I never imagined saying. I need to cancel everything. Asterisk, my heart sank. She didn't even ask if we'd be okay with it. She didn't ask. That's what haunts me most, not the change of plans, not the decision to skip the trip, not even the fact that she chose someone else's family over her own. It was the complete lack of consideration, the absence of a question. Would you be okay with that? Dad, will it hurt you if I don't come? Is it all right if I spend Christmas elsewhere? Not once did she ask. I didn't need her to obey me. She's grown now, living her own life. I didn't need her permission to be happy, but I did need her to care, even a little. A simple question would have changed everything. It would have told me that I still mattered, that even though I'm no longer the center of her universe, I'm still in it. But no, she made her decision and then dropped it on me, like an announcement, cold, final, as if it had nothing to do with me, as if our years together, our traditions, our bond, our promises were just another event on her calendar. She could cancel without consequence. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she left. The smell of her favorite meal still lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of what the night was supposed to be. The envelopes under the tree sat unopened. Inside one of them was her name, written in my handwriting, next to a first-class boarding pass to the city she once begged me to take her to. She didn't even stay long enough to see it. I walked to the living room and stared at the Christmas decorations, the wreath on the door, the stockings on the mantel, the little ceramic angel she used to help me set up when she was still small enough to need a stool. I remember the Christmases when she'd sneak into our room at 5 a.m. just to ask if Santa had come. The way she used to fall asleep next to me on the couch with a candy cane in her hand and Christmas lights glowing on her face. The way she once made me promise we'll always spend Christmas together. Right, Dad. She didn't remember any of that now. Or worse, maybe she did, and it just didn't matter anymore. I sat on the edge of the couch, gripping the edge of my knees, and I realized something that tore right through me. She never even paused to think how we'd feel. Not her mother, not her brother, not me, not one single moment of concern. It felt like I was grieving someone who was still alive, like I'd lost her slowly over the years. And this was just the final blow, and it wasn't just about the trip to Paris. It was about us. It was about how easily she made the decision, about how casually she delivered it, about how little room she left for emotion, like we were just a line item she had crossed off. She didn't ask me if I'd already paid for everything. She didn't ask what her little brother might feel when we told him she wasn't coming. She didn't even ask if we planned anything special for her. She didn't ask because she didn't want to hear the answer, as if hearing it would force her to feel guilty, as if knowing we were hurt would complicate her tidy little Christmas plan with her boyfriend's family. And that's what made my heart sink the most. Not the absence of her physical presence, but the absence of her care. I raised this girl with everything I had, Gave her the best I could, worked overtime, skipped weekends, sacrificed vacations and new cars just to save for her education, her passions, her future. And now, the one time I asked for us, the one time I tried to pull our family together again, she decided we weren't part of her story anymore, and she didn't even ask if that would break me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering where I went wrong. Did I give her too much freedom? Did I make things easy? Was I forgiving every time she pulled away? Or maybe it was none of those things. Maybe children don't stay children. Maybe daughters grow up and stop needing their fathers and they don't realize they're doing it. But even then, don't you at least ask? The next morning, my wife sat across from me at breakfast. The air between us was heavy. She stirred her tea slowly and finally whispered, maybe she's just trying to be her own person. I nodded, but deep down, I felt the cold truth settle into my bones. You can accept that your children grow up. You can accept that they'll change. You can even accept that they'll make decisions that don't involve you. But it still hurts when they don't care how those decisions affect you. I think that's what broke my heart more than anything else. Not that she chose someone else, but that she didn't consider us at all. She didn't ask, and that silence was louder than any rejection. That was the moment I realized something had changed forever, not just in her, but in me too. The man who had been waiting to surprise her with a once-in-a-lifetime Christmas trip was now sitting alone in a quiet kitchen, facing a truth he didn't want to accept. She didn't ask, because maybe she didn't need us anymore. My wife tried to stay neutral, but I saw the disappointment in her eyes. We didn't speak much that night. After my daughter left and the front door clicked shut, the silence fell hard like a blanket of snow that muffled everything. No one wanted to say the obvious. The words were too sharp, too painful, but they hung in the air anyway. My wife stood at the sink, pretending to rinse a dish that wasn't even dirty. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the gift envelopes, still wrapped and waiting under the tree, as if they hadn't just been rendered meaningless. She glanced at me a few times, but each time I looked up, she quickly turned away, her eyes refusing to meet mine, and that told me everything. She was trying to be the calm one, the voice of reason, the mother who understands, the wife who doesn't fuel the fire. But I've lived with this woman for over 2 decades. I know her tells. I know the way her fingers twitch when she's holding back tears. I know the way her jaw tightens when she wants to scream, but chooses silence. She was heartbroken too. She just didn't want me to see it. That's the thing about mothers, they endure differently. They carry their pain like quiet burdens. Fold it into the laundry, stir it into the soup, push it behind soft smiles so the rest of the family doesn't fall apart. But I saw it. I saw all of it. We cleaned up dinner in silence. Her hands moved, methodically, like muscle memory. She didn't say a word when I dumped the uneaten rosemary chicken into the trash. She just looked at it, then looked away, and when I finally broke the silence and said, "So, she made her choice," my wife didn't answer right away. She just exhaled slow and heavy, then whispered, "She's growing up, that's all." But I heard it, the tremble behind her voice, the forced distance in those words. That's all wasn't truth. It was resignation. It was her way of saying, "This hurts like hell, but I don't know how to stop it." I got up and stood behind her, placed my hands gently on her shoulders. She didn't even ask us if it was okay. I said, like we were, "Nothing." My wife nodded, but still, she kept her back to me, still didn't want me to see her face, still didn't want me to see that the strong woman holding us all together was slowly breaking inside, just like I was. She didn't mean to hurt us, she said after a while, and I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe that. But what I couldn't ignore was how easily it came to her, the way she said it, the way she left, the way our daughter just erased us from her Christmas plans, like we were outdated furniture. I pulled a chair and sat beside her. Do you think we did something wrong? That's the question every parent asks when their child drifts. Where did we fail? Was it too much freedom? Too much trust? Not enough presence? But my wife shook her head. No, We raised her with love. We gave her everything. I nodded. We had. We gave her attention. We showed up to every recital, every school play. We stayed up late helping her with projects. Wiped her tears when friends betrayed her. Saved. For years so she wouldn't carry student loans. We gave her a home, a foundation, a family dot, and yet, here we were, empty chairs, unopened envelopes, and silence where laughter should have been. I saw your face when she said it. I told her. You were hurt. She paused for a long time before finally whispering. I was. And just like that, the mask dropped. Her eyes welled up. Her voice cracked. She placed the dish rag down, turned to me slowly, and let out a shaky breath. She's never missed a Christmas, she said. Not once. I knew that. We both did. Christmas wasn't just a day in our house, it was our tradition. We baked together. We played that ridiculous Christmas album she used to dance to when she was 7. We stayed up late watching cheesy movies and wrapping last-minute gifts. It wasn't about the presents. It was about us, and now she was gone. Not in body, but in spirit. I think that's what hurts the most, my wife said. Her eyes glassy. Not that she's spending it somewhere else, but that she didn't think it would hurt us. And I couldn't argue. That was it. The wound. The raw nerve. If she had just asked, if she had just said, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I know this might hurt, but maybe we could have swallowed the pain. But the way she told us, like we were nothing more than a side note to her plans, it was a different kind of pain. A kind that cuts deeper than anger. I wish she knew how much we were looking forward to this. My wife whispered. She didn't want to know. I replied, and that truth hit both of us hard. It wasn't that she didn't care. It's that she chose not to care enough. She didn't want the guilt, so she didn't ask. She didn't want the responsibility, so she didn't explain. She didn't want the weight of our emotions, so she avoided them altogether, and in doing so, she disappointed the two people who loved her more than life itself. My wife leaned her head against my shoulder. We sat there, just the two of us, in the soft glow of the Christmas lights, both of us silently grieving the version of our daughter we thought we still had. She tried to stay neutral. She tried to be strong, but I saw through it all. And that quiet disappointment in her eyes. It said everything words never could. Asterisk, I canceled the trip the next morning without telling anyone. I woke up before the sun. It was one of those mornings where the silence feels different, heavier somehow. The kind of silence that sits on your chest, not letting you breathe fully. My wife was still asleep beside me, curled up under the thick blanket we brought out for winter. I watched her for a moment, peaceful and unaware of the decision that had already begun to take shape in my mind. Paris. The trip, the dream, the promise. I had held onto it like a lifeline. For months, it had been more than just a vacation. It was my mission, my attempt to piece our family back together, to remind my daughter of where she came from. I thought if I could just get us all on that plane, if I could just get us walking down snowy cobblestone streets, sipping cocoa and laughing beneath the Eiffel Tower lights, maybe she'd remember who we are, who she was with us. But she made it clear she wasn't coming, and not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. She had already left long ago. I slid out of bed without waking my wife, walked down the hallway, past the closed door of my son's room, where he still lay dreaming, past the living room, where the Christmas tree twinkled. In the dark, still proudly displaying those gold and silver travel-themed ornaments I picked out for the trip. Little Eiffel Towers, mini passports, paper airplanes. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The screen lit up, cold and blue, and it felt symbolic somehow, like the last remaining flame of hope was flickering out. I stared at the flight, confirmation email, the hotel bookings, the tour packages. Every tab I opened stabbed me with memories of excitement, my excitement, because it had only ever been mine. I scrolled down to the airline's cancellation policy. No refunds on the flights, partial credits on the hotel, cancellation fees on some of the reservations. I hesitated. Then I heard her voice again. I'm spending Christmas with Josh's family. That was it. Not even a sorry, not even a hint of guilt, not even a request to reschedule, just a dismissal. Like everything I had planned, everything I had felt was disposable. I clicked the button, cancel trip. It asked me to confirm, are you sure? I wasn't, but I clicked anyway. One by one, I canceled every piece of the dream, the tickets, the bookings, the passes, the guided tours, the dinner at the candlelit rooftop bistro where I had planned to surprise her with a handwritten letter I'd been drafting for weeks, one that told her how proud I was, how much I missed her, how deeply I still saw the little girl inside the woman she was becoming. I deleted it. She didn't want the trip, so the trip no longer existed. No one else in the house knew. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my son, not because I was trying to hide it, but because I needed a moment to grieve it alone. I felt like I was burying something sacred, something fragile and beautiful that no longer had a place in this world. I didn't want to speak, didn't want to explain, because how do you explain the death of hope? The hardest part was canceling the ballet tickets. Palais Garnier, Christmas night, front row. I had imagined her face when we walked into that glorious hall together, the ceiling painted with angels, the gold balconies glowing, the hush before the orchestra began. I thought maybe she'd look at me and say, you remembered, but she'd never know now. As I canceled the final reservation, I felt the tears welling in my eyes. I wasn't crying for the money or the lost vacation. I was crying for the silence, for the space between us, for how hard I had tried and how little it mattered in the end. People say you can't force closeness. They're right, but no one talks about what it feels like when you finally let go of the rope you've been pulling on for years, hoping, praying, begging the other end will pull back. I let go. The final confirmation email came in. Your trip has been canceled. We're sorry to see you go. So was I. I closed the laptop. The sun was beginning to rise now, casting a soft glow over the snow outside. I stood by the window for a long time, watching the cold world wake up. This wasn't how Christmas was supposed to go. This wasn't what I planned. But maybe, just maybe, plans are only half the story. The other half is acceptance. Knowing when to stop chasing what someone else has already walked away from. That morning, I brewed coffee and sat on the couch. My son came out rubbing his eyes, asking if we were still flying out on Christmas Eve. I told him no, but something came up. We're staying home this year. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and sat next to me. A few minutes later, my wife joined us. She sensed something was different, but she didn't press. Not yet. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt it. And so the three of us sat there, beneath a blinking Christmas tree, in a living room filled with plans that would never be, and memories that hadn't even been made yet, grieving them together, in silence. And still, I didn't say a word about the cancellation. Because sometimes, what breaks you doesn't need to be spoken aloud. Sometimes, it just needs to be felt. And I had felt enough. When the cancellation email hit her inbox, she called, furious. Suddenly I mattered. It's strange how quickly silence can turn into noise. How a phone that had been painfully quiet for days can suddenly ring with such urgency. It makes your heart jolt. It happened the morning after I canceled everything. Paris was officially off. The ballet, the river cruise, the carefully planned dinners, gone. The world outside was still covered in snow, and the house was quiet. My wife and son were both out running errands. I was sitting by the fireplace, trying to feel something other than regret, when my phone buzzed. It was her, my daughter. For a split second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she was calling to apologize, to say she'd been thinking about it, that maybe she acted too quickly and wanted to make it right. But I was wrong. The second I answered, her voice came in hot, sharp, loud, furious. Why did you cancel the trip, Dad? There it was. Her first words to me in 2 days. Not how are you? Not can we talk? Not even I'm sorry. Just why did you cancel the trip? I took a breath. Because you weren't coming, I said quietly. And without you, it wasn't the same. You could have at least told me. She snapped. I didn't say I wasn't coming at all. I just said I had other plans. You didn't even ask me if I could change them. I could hear the panic beneath her anger, like she wasn't just mad about the trip being canceled. She was mad that I had made a decision without chasing after her first, without giving her the option to control the situation. I stayed calm. You made it pretty clear you had already chosen. Sweetheart, you didn't ask us if we were okay with it. You didn't even ask if it would break our hearts. There was a pause, a long one, and in that silence, I realized something bitter. She hadn't expected consequences. She thought I would just wait, that I would absorb the hurt quietly, keep the trip going, and maybe leave her ticket open just in case she changed her mind at the last minute. She thought I would still put her at the center of everything, even after she had moved us to the side. And when I didn't, suddenly, I mattered. You didn't need to be so dramatic, she said, her tone dropping slightly. This whole trip wasn't just about me, but that was a lie, and we both knew it. I had planned every moment with her in mind. I booked the Eiffel Tower dinner because she used to talk about how magical it would be to see the city lights from the top. I reserved a painting workshop at a tiny Parisian art studio because I remembered how she once said she wanted to paint the Seine River. I even bought a small gold locket to give her on Christmas night, engraved with the coordinates of where we were supposed to be. None of it was random. None of it was for anyone else. I stayed quiet for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Do you even realize how much I planned for you? I asked. Do you have any idea what this trip meant to me, to your mom, to your brother? She didn't respond. Not immediately. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. She finally said, I just wanted to spend Christmas with Josh. I didn't think you'd cancel everything. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. She didn't think I'd cancel because she didn't think her absence would mean that much. That's what stung the most. Not that she made a different choice, but that she assumed we would quietly accept being second place. She assumed I would wait on her, as always, that I'd keep showing up with open arms, no matter how many times she walked away. I canceled, I said, because it was never just a vacation. It was a gift from a father who misses his daughter. And gifts lose their meaning when the person they're meant for no longer wants them. That silence came again, and this time it lingered. I could feel it, her walls cracking, just a little. You could have told me, she whispered. You didn't have to just cancel everything behind my back. I didn't do it behind your back, I said. I did it alone, because I needed to feel what it's like to finally stop chasing someone who doesn't want to be caught. I don't know if those words hurt her. I didn't say them to be cruel. I said them because they were true. For years, I'd been trying to keep the pieces of our relationship glued together, making excuses, giving space, waiting for signs of the little girl I used to know, but all I ever got was distance. And when I finally stopped, when I finally canceled the trip, she noticed that suddenly I wasn't invisible. Suddenly, I was in the background noise. Suddenly, I mattered. But not because she missed me. Not because she regretted her choice, because I had taken away something she thought she could come back to when it was convenient. So, what now? She asked softly. I sighed. I don't know. I said, Christmas is coming, and we'll be here. We'll still make it special, just not the way I planned. She didn't respond. I think for the first time, she realized what she had lost. Not a trip, not a ticket, not a tourist experience. She lost a moment that will never come back. She lost the look in my eyes when I would have watched her see Paris for the first time. She lost a father's dream, a chance to reconnect, to rebuild, to heal. That phone call ended quietly. No yelling, no resolution. Just the people standing on opposite sides of a broken bridge, both wondering how it got this far. And in the silence that followed, I thought to myself, she only called me because I canceled the trip. Not because she missed me, not because she realized what she did, because for once I didn't make her the priority, and that scared her. I told her, family wasn't your priority. Now it's not mine either. I never thought I'd say those words, not to her, not to the child I once carried on my shoulders through summer fairs and snowy sidewalks, who used to cling to my hand like the world would fall apart if she let go. But that morning, after she called me furious, panicked, blindsided by the fact that I had finally drawn a line, something in me broke. Or maybe it finally healed. She accused me of being unfair, said I was making this all about me, said she had every right to choose how she spent her Christmas, and she wasn't wrong, but neither was I. I didn't say I don't care about you, Dad, she said. I just wanted something different this year. Her voice was shaking now, trying to regain control, trying to soften the blow of a decision already made. That's when I said it, calmly, coldly. Honestly, family wasn't your priority. Now it's not mine either. The line hung in the air like a hammer mid-swing. I think we both felt the shock of it. She fell silent, and I knew why. Because for the first time in her life, I wasn't pleading, compromising, adjusting. I was done. For years, I had made excuses for her absence. She's busy, she's stressed, she's growing up, she'll come around. But in the process of giving her space, I had abandoned my own boundaries. I made her feelings more important than mine, her convenience more important than our connection. And in doing so, I taught her something dangerous, that I would always be waiting, no matter how far she drifted, that I would always be her emotional safety net, even when she never looked down. But this time I caught myself instead. She tried to recover. Dad, that's not fair. I just wanted to spend Christmas with Josh's family. It's not like I don't love you, but love without effort, I replied, is convenience. And I don't need convenient love anymore. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't even angry. I was clear. Years of quiet heartbreak had taught me how to bleed, without making a sound. But not anymore. Now, I was done bleeding for someone who only noticed when the mess splashed on her shoes. You made your choice, I continued. You didn't ask if we'd be okay. You didn't check on your brother. You didn't ask your mother if she was disappointed. You just informed us like we were an afterthought. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. I didn't think you'd take it so personally. I let out a sad laugh. That's the problem. You didn't think about us at all. And that was the heart of it. She made a personal decision and pretended it had no ripples. But love isn't built in isolation. Family isn't something you press pause on when other options come up. It's something you nurture, something you choose even when it's inconvenient. She had made her choice. Now I was making mine. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't rearrange. I wouldn't hold my breath, hoping for her to come around anymore. She wasn't a child now, and I wasn't her doormat. So yes, I canceled the trip. And yes, I said the words I never imagined I'd say. Family wasn't your priority. Now it's not mine either. And I meant it. From that moment on, I decided I would pour into the people who chose me. My son, who still looked for me with wonder in his eyes. My wife, who had stood beside me through every version of our daughter, from joyful to distant to silent. Myself, who had given and given and given and was finally allowed to receive peace in return. She was quiet on the phone for the first time in a long time. She didn't have a retort. No snappy defense. No practice indifference. Just breathing. Just silence. Maybe, somewhere in that silence, she realized she pushed too far. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she was just stunned that I finally stopped chasing. Either way, I was done explaining. The call ended shortly after. Not with a bang. Not with closure. Just the dull hum of disconnection. She hung up first. And for once, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt grounded. Strong. Clear. For years, I've been trying to hold this family together with duct tape and hope. But a one-sided relationship is nothing but emotional starvation. And I was finally hungry for something real, something reciprocal. That night, I cooked dinner with my son. We laughed over burnt toast and spilled cranberry sauce. We danced in the kitchen while Bing Crosby played. My wife smiled, really smiled for the first time in days. And as we sat around the table, eating food we barely managed to get right, I looked at them and thought, this is family. The ones who show up, the ones who care, the ones who ask how you're doing, not after the damage is done, but while the storm is still coming. She may be our daughter, yes, but family is about behavior. And when she's ready to show up as part of it again, not just in blood, But in effort I'll be here. But until then, she made her choice, and now, so have I. Asked her, she texted on Christmas Eve asking if there was still a seat at the table. I wasn't expecting to hear from her again, not this soon. Not on that day. Christmas Eve had always been sacred in our house. It was the heartbeat of the season, the night where everything finally came together in music, food, lights, laughter. The night when, for a few precious hours, nothing else mattered but us. And this year, it was quieter, smaller, different. My wife and I had done our best to keep things warm for our son. We decorated the house, baked cookies, lit candles, and let old Bing Crosby songs hum through the speakers just like always. I even tried smiling more than I felt, because kids can sense sadness even when you try to wrap it in tinsel. We had already planned a simple dinner, roasted chicken instead of the Persian cuisine I'd imagined, homemade stuffing, mashed potatoes, and apple pie cooling on the counter. No plane tickets, no Eiffel Tower, just us, the three of us. I just set the table when I felt my phone buzz in my back pocket. I didn't even check it right away. Figured it was a holiday promotion or a forwarded meme from a friend, trying to be festive. But something nudged me, call it intuition, or that strange sixth sense parents develop when their children are involved. I pulled it out. One message from her, the same daughter who had been radio silent since our last call, the same daughter who had walked away from everything we planned like it was just another errand to cancel. I stared at the screen. It was just one line. Is there still a seat at the table? My heart stopped for a beat. I read it again, making sure it said what I thought it said. Not Merry Christmas, not sorry, not even I'm coming. Just a question. 7 words. But those 7 words carried everything: hesitation, regret, a trace of humility, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of longing to come home. I sat down, phone still in my hand, and just stared at that message. My wife was putting the finishing touches on the table, and when she turned and saw my face, she knew something was up. What is it? She asked gently. I handed her the phone. Her eyes scanned the message. Then she looked up at me with a softness I hadn't seen in days. No words, just hope. Hope. We were both too tired to say aloud, but too human to deny. We didn't reply right away, not out of pride, not as punishment, but because in that moment, we both needed to ask ourselves, were we ready to let her back in? Because opening the door again wasn't just about tonight, it was about everything. It was about choosing vulnerability again, about allowing someone who had walked away from your love to sit at the table, where that love had always lived. I looked across the table at my son, now arranging the cutlery with precision far too serious for a 10-year-old. He was humming a carol, oblivious to the storm quietly shifting behind his father's tired eyes. She's reaching out, my wife said softly, as if speaking the truth too loudly might break it. Or she's just lonely. I replied, maybe things didn't go well with Josh's family. She shrugged, maybe, but she still thought of us. I nodded, slowly. Because whatever the reason, she thought of us on Christmas Eve, when the silence finally got loud enough for her to hear what she'd been missing. I picked up the phone. My thumbs hovered for a long time. What do you say to someone who vanished without apology, then knocked on the door of your heart with a single sentence? Eventually, I typed, there's always a seat, you know that, and I hit send. My wife let out a breath she'd been holding. A small smile played on her lips as she turned away before I could see her eyes shine with tears. No conditions, no lectures, just a seat, waiting. That's what family does. That's what home is. Half an hour later, we heard a car pull up outside. I didn't rush to the window like I used to. I just waited. The doorbell rang, soft but sharp in the quiet of the house. I opened it. There she stood, her hair a little messy, her coat wrinkled from the long ride, a nervous, almost embarrassed smile on her face, eyes filled with something that looked like gratitude, or maybe guilt, probably both. She held a small bag of gifts. I could tell she grabbed them last minute, tags still on. She stepped forward hesitantly, as if unsure if she was really welcome. I didn't say anything. I just pulled her in, held her, not hard, Not long, just enough she melted. Her arms wrapped around me like she'd been waiting for that exact moment since the minute she left. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered, and that was enough. I pulled back slightly and looked at her. "Come on, dinner's ready." She smiled genuinely. This time Aunt stepped inside Dot. When she walked into the dining room, she paused, looked at the table, at her little brother who lit up like the tree when he saw her, at her mother, who smiled through misty eyes. Her seat was still there, the same one she'd had since she was 5, untouched, unclaimed, but never removed. Because in this home, we may hurt, we may break, but we don't erase. There's always a seat, even if it takes the long road. She didn't say much, but her eyes said what pride never could. She sat down quietly. There was no grand apology, no long explanation, just the sound of her coat slipping off the chair, the clink of her fork on the plate, and the soft exhale of someone returning to something they thought they might have lost forever. I kept waiting for her to say more, to crack open whatever storm had been brewing in her heart. But she didn't. Not that night. Not with words. Instead, she sat there beside her mother, opposite her little brother, across from me, and existed in the silence. But the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't cold. It was different now, soft, open, like the silence that comes after the rain, when the world is still dripping but alive again. Her eyes kept darting around the table, to the food, to the decoration she hadn't helped put up this year, to the envelope tucked beneath her plate still sealed, still bearing her name. I saw her glance at it, and then look away. I wondered if she recognized the handwriting, if she knew what was inside that plane ticket, that Paris itinerary, that little letter she never received. I wondered if she felt the weight of what almost was, and the miracle of what still is. She picked at her food at first, nervous hands, but gradually the warmth returned to her fingers. She laughed when her brother dropped a spoonful of mashed potatoes on the floor, smiled when her mother teased him for eating with his hands, and when she finally looked up at me, her eyes met mine with a softness I hadn't seen in years. Not since she was a teenager. Before the distance, before the walls, before the pride dot, and in that single glance, I saw what her mouth couldn't say. "I'm sorry. I miss you. I didn't know how much I needed this." They say the eyes are the window to the soul. That night, hers were wide open and flooding. There was guilt in them, but there was love too, and shame, and longing, and underneath it all something fragile and beautiful, hope, the kind that only comes after realizing you were lost. She looked away quickly, blinking faster than usual. I think she didn't want us to see, didn't want to crack completely, but I saw it. Every father knows his daughter's face. There are things pride will never let us say out loud, especially when we've hurt the ones we love. But the eyes they betray us, they speak before we're ready. They scream through the silence. I didn't need her to fall at my feet. I didn't need a perfectly worded confession. I just needed that look that said, "I understand now. I see what you meant. I see what I threw away, and I want it back." My wife passed her the apple pie, and for the first time all night, she took it without hesitation. She even asked for whipped cream. My son beamed at her like she'd just returned from war, and maybe she had, a war inside herself, between pride and love, between control and surrender, between the image she tried to project and the truth she couldn't outrun. I saw it in her eyes, the realization that life is short, that Christmases aren't guaranteed, that parents grow old quietly while children grow distant loudly, and if you're not careful, you miss too much to ever get it back. After dinner, we moved to the couch, lit a fire, opened a few early gifts. She sat close, not saying much, but not trying to escape either. Dot, her head tilted slightly when I laughed. Her hand brushed against her mother's. She smiled at a silly pair of socks her brother had wrapped for her in too much tape. She wasn't just pleasing, she was trying, and that effort meant more to me than any apology ever could. Later that night, when the house had gone still, I walked past her old room. The door was open. The lamp was on. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the envelope I left on her dinner plate. She hadn't opened it, just held it, like it was something sacred. Fragile Dot, she looked up at me as I paused in the doorway. Her eyes were glassy. Was this the trip? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. You didn't have to save it for me, she said, her tone soft, cracked. I did, I replied, because I never stopped hoping you'd come home. She looked down at the envelope again. Her fingers ran across her name. She didn't cry, not then, but her silence was full of emotion. And her eyes, they said everything her pride was still afraid to admit. You were right. I thought I didn't need this, but I do. Thank you for not giving up. I don't want to be a stranger anymore. She didn't open the envelope. Not that night. I think she wasn't ready, or maybe she wanted to save it to open it on her terms, in her own time. But it didn't matter, because the moment she walked through that door and sat at our table, she opened something far more important to her. Hard Dot, and in that opening, in that quiet surrender, I saw her again. Not the woman she was pretending to be, not the walls she built around herself, but the girl I raised, the girl who used to call me her hero, the girl who once said, no matter what, I'll never stop loving you. She didn't say much that night, but she didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. Asterisk, we didn't go to Paris, but we found each other again, and maybe that was the real miracle. The snow was falling gently on Christmas morning, not the kind of stormy snowfall you dread, but the kind that settles softly over rooftops and trees like the earth is being wrapped in forgiveness. I stood by the living room window, watching it blanket our street, thinking how different this day had turned out from what I had once imagined. No Eiffel Tower, no river cruises, no candlelit dinners overlooking the Paris skyline, no photos of us with scarves and cocoa in Montmartre. The trip was supposed to be the grand gesture, the statement, the last-ditch effort to bring us back together as a family. But life has a strange way of rewriting your plans, and sometimes those revisions are better than the script you were clinging to. My daughter came down the stairs slowly that morning, wrapped in the same old robe she'd worn in high school. Her hair was tied up in a loose bun. No makeup, no filters, just her, the real her, the girl we hadn't seen in so long. She walked over to the couch, sat beside her younger brother, and quietly handed him a small wrapped box. He looked up at her, eyes wide, unsure if it was for him. Go ahead, she said. It's not much, but I thought you'd like it. He tore it open like it was the greatest gift in the world, and the smile on his face told me it might have. Bendashi turned to my wife and handed her a small white bag. I saw this in the shop last week. It reminded me of you. It was a candle lavender, her mom's favorite scent. That was the moment I realized something had shifted. Not dramatically, not instantly, but enough. She was trying, not because she had to, because she wanted to. She turned to me last, reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something small wrapped in tissue paper. I wasn't sure if I should give this to you, she said, but I bought it before everything happened, and I still meant it. She handed it to me. Inside was a small, silver keychain shaped like a camera. On the back, it was engraved, "For all the memories you've captured for us." I stared at it for a long moment. Of all the gifts, this one broke me, because it wasn't just an object, it was recognition. She remembered all those years I stood behind the lens, recording. School plays, birthdays, silly dances in the kitchen. She remembered that I didn't just give her time or money, I gave her moments. I gave her history. I gave her the proof that we were once inseparable. I looked up. Our eyes met. No tears, no speeches, just the knowing. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you, she replied, for not closing the door. And right there in that small, humble exchange, I realized something I had missed in all my planning, booking, and strategizing. Paris was never the point. It was never about the destination. It was about the reunion, the hope that, somehow, we could reconnect, that we could remember what it meant to be us. That we had, not through five-star dinners or city lights, but around a quiet table, over shared pie, through soft glances and hesitant gifts. Later that day, we played board games, watched old Christmas movies, even dug out a dusty photo album and laughed. At the hairstyles we once swore were stylish, we were present, together, no one checking out, no one distracted. Just 3 generations sitting under the same roof, choosing each other again. At one point in the afternoon, my daughter leaned her head on my shoulder. She hadn't done that in years, maybe since she was 16. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to die. Her presence was the apology. Her stillness was the healing. Her quiet return was the miracle. I thought about how many parents were waking up that morning to disappointment, an unanswered text, a missed call, an empty chair at the table. And yet, somehow, despite everything, my daughter came home. No, we didn't fly across the world. We didn't toast beneath the Parisian sky. But we traveled farther than I ever imagined possible. We crossed years of silence, bridges burned by misunderstanding, wounds left open by pride. We found each other in the wreckage. And maybe that's what Christmas is about, after all. Not perfection, not performance, but presence. The courage to come home, the grace to open the door again, the choice to love, even when it's not easy. We didn't go to Paris, but we found something far more precious, a second chance, a shared meal, a softened heart, and the promise that maybe, just maybe, love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. As night fell and the house quieted, I stood once more by the window, watching the snow fall. Behind me, the fireplace crackled softly. My wife rested her head on the arm of the couch. My son was curled up with a book, and my daughter, she was asleep, curled beneath a blanket she hadn't touched since high school. We weren't in France.